It's not enough for our next guest to simply help someone heal. Instead, she wants to help them evolve. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, and transformational coaches, as well as spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to help coaches and entrepreneurs amplify their voice and monetize their mission and get visible, leveraging podcast and a huge network audience over on the Gnostic TV network. Today, we are chatting with Dr. Katherine Kelly, who is a holistic health psychologist, soul healing specialist, best-selling and award-winning author, consultant, and professional speaker. Dr. Kelly resurrects the soul to its rightful place in our lives. She offers engaging, knowledgeable, and groundbreaking ideas about leadership, healthcare, wellness, integrative healing methods, and spirituality, consciousness, and evolution to aid you on your journey to soul health. Welcome to the show, Dr. Kelly. It's great to have
Thank
you
you.
here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I have to tell you, I'm really excited to be talking about this whole topic because I've over the years had many thoughts about it and wandered into like my own version of the woo, even as a youngster.
Sure.
So,
Wonderful.
are you ready for the big question?
Let's do it.
All right. What's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals, we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
And this is going to dive right straight in. I personally think it is acknowledging and honoring the soul's aspect because, to me, the soul is not a religious term. I don't go down that path because
Mhm.
there's 8.6 billion people on this planet. And as far as I'm concerned, every one of them has a soul, regardless of their religious affiliation. So to me, it's the essence of who a person is. And the biggest challenge with modern healthcare, modern mental health care, and I'm a psychologist, so I can say this, is that we've disconnected from that very key part of who we are. And treatment is sort of standardized these days. It's not individualized. And I think that is a big problem with our healthcare system. I think that's a big problem with the mental health system. So that's why, I'm here to elevate that soul back to where it needs to be. Now, I'm a realist that really the soul plays a part in every aspect of who we are already. But if we were to learn to acknowledge it, we would get so much further in any life advancement challenge that we have. So whether it's a physical illness, an emotional illness, or just getting ourselves in a place with life that we want to be, with coaching, with therapy, with whatever. So I I, I love talking about the soul. This is my favorite thing in the world.
Even relationships, or I
Oh,
should say, especially relationships.
especially relationships. Every aspect, and I know that you and I are going to talk about this in a little bit, but the offering that I have for those who listen is a copy basically of what I call the soul health model. And I created this model about 19 years ago now. And it encompasses every aspect of the human condition that anybody is challenged by. And I created this because the wellness models that are out there are not enough. Being a therapist, I hear in and out what people are dealing with. And like you said, relationships, human to human kinds of interactions are the best way that we learn about ourselves. So that soul part of us is thrown right out there when we are in relationships. So this is the perfect example.
In a lot of ways, we're here to have experiences with other beings, not even necessarily human beings, but just other souls. And I personally believe animals have souls as well.
Absolutely.
Um, and that they're just like pieces of God, but that's that's my own interpretation. Uh, I think there's like 8 billion people and we all believe something totally different. We may say we belong to a religion, but no,
Yeah.
really, I don't think you do. Um, let's talk about what the soul is and what it isn't first off, because I think that's going to be like it's the defining feature of what we're talking about. So,
Yeah, and I love that we're starting with this too. I'm actually launching these certification programs for other healthcare providers and coaches to understand the soul more so they can help people go further. And the first thing I'm teaching basically is what the soul is and what it isn't. And so, you mentioned just a second ago that, you know, we all have different kinds of belief systems. And I'm going to start right there because of the fact that religion is created for us, whereas we create our own spirituality. So,
Mm.
yes, there's 8.6 billion people on the planet, which means there are 8.6 billion different ways we look at spirituality. And that to me is such a good reflection of what the soul actually is that we have to go through life trying to figure out who we are. And to me, that is the mission of all humans on this planet is basically one way or another, we're trying to figure out who we are. Someone years ago asked me what the mission of every human was, and I said, to find our truth and keep it. And to me, that is soul, and that's soul health is that, and like you said, relationships, man, they challenge us like crazy, but it's basically to learn who we are and basically align. I use the word alignment a lot. So learn how to align ourselves for what I call radiant living. And radiant living simply means that we are getting the different, and I'll show this in a second, show the different branches of the human condition that are kind of out of whack or imbalanced. And then as we learn what we need to do to rebalance those, that's to me where that alignment, that is what soul health is about, is figuring out who we are, how to align our lives in one way or another to feel that, calmness, that joy and contentment. And really that's what this whole thing is about. And whether it's a coach, whether it's a practitioner of some sort, a teacher, an educator, that's what we're here to do, is to help people and ourselves get to that place of alignment. So the soul is basically the essence of who we are, and anything that does not fit who we are goes against, again, the definition of what that soul is. That's a very simple way to explain that answer for you.
So, and this is going to sound really crazy, but
Probably
the
not.
soul does not actually exist as an organ in our bodies. Like it is not your brain.
No.
So maybe
No,
this.
so the soul is, and I love the question because and believe it or not, there have been scientists who have tried to figure out where in the body the soul exists. Way, way back in Hippocrates' time, there were physicians who, as they dissected bodies, were trying to find the darn thing. And of course, they never found it. And it's because the soul is energy. The soul is the really compilation of all the energy of who we are, past, present, future, and it exists in every aspect of who we are. Now, the energetic component of us that animates the body is the soul, but the body is not the soul. There's nowhere in the body that you can say, oh, that's where it is. So, every cell in our body, we talk about body memory or cell memory. Every cell in our body has some sort of memory according to what our soul is portraying at the time. So that's why we can have aches and pains in a certain part of our body, but it's all soul based. That's why we can have certain illnesses or emotions come up, and because it's stored in the body. And I tell people, wounding, whether it's physical wounding or emotional wounding, is like having an energetic imprint on our soul that is remembering some sort of wound or experience or memory from past that either needs to be resolved in order to move beyond it. And that's why I use the word evolve. You started out with that because we have to evolve beyond something. To me, healing only gets us back to where we were. And for me, we are conscious beings. We're here to evolve. And that whole process of figuring out, okay, where is that soul? How do I align with it is part of evolving beyond what we previously thought. But it's also part of evolving beyond illness or emotional illness, if that's the case, or faulty thoughts that don't fit for us anymore, old relationship dynamics that no longer fit. So it really is about finding out how to evolve beyond something, but that's how we release or resolve and remove those energetic imprints that have been left on us somewhere within us.
I have a very simplistic explanation that sort of just came to me, and as though our bodies are the car that we drive around in, then the soul is the occupant
Sure.
that sometimes your arm sticks out the window. You don't actually exist in the body. We exist in energy form around the body. And
Exactly.
we interact with the body, and each cell in our body is actually a living entity of its own.
Yes.
So when things go wrong with our body, it's not that there's something wrong with our souls. There's something wrong with our machine that we're using to have this experience in.
Yes, and and I would agree, and I would add this because I do have clients calling me. So I do Akashic record readings and soul realignment sessions and past life work too. And I will have clients calling me saying, I have this really strange physical ailment. I don't know where it came from. And a lot of times I'll do some past life work with them to figure out, okay, where did this originate for you? And again, it's that memory, it's that energetic imprint that's left there. And it's like you said, it's the machine part of you that's remembering it, but it's also your soul's purpose to figure out what it's about and heal it so that you can remove that energetic, imprint that you're stumbling on. So, I've heard the body called anything from a vessel to a meat suit. And so it just depends on the sense of humor. But, it's really the soul is what animates everything about us. It's a mirror of every thought, every behavior, every reaction, every emotion, but also everything that happens within our body. And sometimes illness happens, unfortunately, for us to learn something that's part of our soul path so that we can evolve beyond it for whatever the life lesson is behind it. So there's this very dynamic piece of what we're supposed to be learning about ourselves throughout this lifetime that is really about moving forward. It's always about evolution as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let me ask you this. When we talk about the conscious and the unconscious, a- are we talking about the soul or are we talking about the mind? And what's the difference between the soul and the mind?
So I love this question. I love this question because so we're talking about both. And so it's not an either and an or. It all depends on what the information is that's coming through. But our unconscious is really that part of that energetic, whatever is, let me say it this way, whatever is stored in our unconscious is part of that energetic imprint of whatever we're supposed to maybe bring to consciousness to go, wow, okay, now I understand this. That's kind of that conscious evolution piece of this. But we need our heads, we need the human head, we need the human brain or the psyche, and we need the heart, the emotional part of us, the part that can be very touched. We need both of those to help inform the soul and work through kinds of some of the things that are related to the soul, but they are not the soul. To me, the soul encompasses the mind, the body, the heart, all of that, but it's not the same thing. We were taught very, very early on this that the psyche and soul are the same word. They're not the same word at all. So
And
consciousness has much more to do with using our brains to interpret whatever the unconscious message is, but it's all related to what our soul is supposed to evolve beyond in this lifetime.
so are you saying that our souls know the information that our subconscious has, but we need to process it through our brain in order for us to experience it on a conscious level as a soul?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that information is stored more in the energetic composition of the soul than it is in the brain. But we have to access it through our brains to think through, process it, understand it, transcend it, resolve it in order to help our souls evolve in one way or another.
And I know that our brain gives off chemicals. We call them emotions, but emotions are just chemical reactions that are triggered by thoughts that we have. Um, and our and how does that play into our soul interaction with our bodies?
Yeah, again, a great question because you're right. Our brains emit all of these neurotransmitters and these chemicals. And again, I would interpret it that the emotions are already stored in the soul. they're the energetic imprints, they're the wounds, they're the reactions. And it's to me, the emotions are nothing more than a trigger or a cue for us to pay attention to something that's misaligned so that we can heal something at a soul level that is, again, misaligned with us. So whether we're in a for instance, one of my most recent books that I published is about depression in the soul. And it's this whole idea that to me, most depression is what I call suppression of the soul. That the depression is that something is weighing us down, something is muffling the state of our soul to the point where we can't live freely, can't live openly, can't live aligned. And so that suppression is really what we're supposed to be working through. But we don't know to work through something unless we have enough of an emotion to trigger us to go, oh, wow, I don't feel good. I got to do something about this. The challenge is a lot of people want to squash those emotions or numb those emotions rather than work through them. And when that happens, the soul is not relieved of whatever the discomfort is. It's just kind of pressed down in there more. So is there a place for medication? Absolutely. But is it the only thing that's going to help? No, because it's not just about the neurotransmitters. It's about listening to what that message is behind that emotion that really needs some work. So to me, it's just like a little flag that's being waved to go, hey, pay attention to this. And I can give you so many examples of clients I've worked with that have had terrible circumstances, and we've worked through it from the psychological side, the emotional side, and they'll come back say, and the soul side, definitely. And they'll say, I didn't even realize I didn't have to feel that anymore. So the emotions are really just a layer that's on top of the soul trying to get our attention that also needs to be healed in order for us to really live that radiant life, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you feel like the radiant life, as you call it, is more about living in authenticity and allowing ourselves, you talk about alignment, but eh, alignment is kind of a two-edged sword to me in that you can feel like you need to be in alignment, but it's not actually with who you are and who you are authentically. Like we censor ourselves a lot of times,
Mhm,
and and we're told to censor ourselves as we're growing up.
mhm.
Don't be too loud, don't be questioning everything, don't be this, don't be that. Um, Good girls don't. Uh, and I think that it kind of twists up your soul in terms of how it was really designed to respond to this world and your purpose for being here. It's kind of sounds like that's what you help people find find alignment and cohesion in their purpose so that they can live authentically in a way that feels good for them.
And it goes back to what I said about finding our truth and keeping it. So
Yeah.
absolutely. And I just use the word alignment for a couple different reasons, but authenticity is part of it, genuineness is part of it, honoring your soul is part of it, all of that. And I'm going to give you an example because this is my soul health model. I'm going to see if I can angle
I
it so the
love the
circle light
tree.
doesn't get it. But if you look at this, there's 10 branches of the human condition that everybody on this planet
Mhm.
struggles with or needs to balance or has something to heal in. And if we have any one of these branches or more than one of these branches that is buried under or is not allowed to live, like you said, in its authentic self, then this tree is actually going to look like this. And
Well,
so
that's so sad.
it's that whole idea, and this is why I call depression suppression of the soul a lot of times, because you really just can't live in that, I call it the sweet spot of the soul, unless you know that you need to work on these branches to heal them, unbury them, kind of realign them. But you're absolutely right. It has to do with aligning with that truth, aligning with who you really are at that soul level. And I think the biggest malady of the modern human condition right now is having to live under the idea that of someone else. And that's the biggest challenge is that individuality is kind of out the window when it comes to how people are treated for illness or actually treated for mental illness. And so there's the individuality, that sense of soul is gone. I mean, it's really not. except for practitioners who really want to do this work. Um, it's a place where we have to get back to.
I think that we overall need to get back to talking about the whole being rather than
Yes.
like focusing on your mind or your brain or focusing on your heart or your liver or your spleen or your gallbladder or your appendix or as though each of these individual pieces are a unique, solely contained organism that you could do without.
Right.
Because really, you can't do without any of them. Other things have to take the place, pick up the slack, and then we add all of the pollution on top of it. And it it's a struggle.
And there's so many things going on in the world right now that are really challenging each and every one of those branches of the tree. And that's why, years ago I would say, it sounds dramatic, but that the soul will be our salvation. And I didn't mean that at all in a religious term. I just meant
Yeah.
being your true self, honoring yourself, aligning with yourself, knowing yourself will be what it takes to get through whatever the world is going to dish out. And so, when I talk now about whole person health, and I'm going to show one more thing just to show what I did to expand this, because I actually expanded the model to include the root system. And these are all the factors that go along with the soul. Boy, that it would take a whole day for us to get through them all, but it's whole person health. We have sort of dissected individuals with how they even go to a doctor's office these days, where they literally get 15 to 20 minutes at most to talk with their primary care practitioner. And the problem with that is you barely get into anything, and you have to take a little snapshot of the person and then maybe come back 2 months later to talk about the next step snapshot. So we've really gotten away from treating the individual, treating that soul perspective, whereas modern medicine has gotten so far away. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, 2,500 years ago said the soul is present in every organ and in every illness. That is not what is taught in medical school right now. I was a medical school professor. It is not taught. So we have to get back to the whole person.
Yeah, I heard that the lymphatic system wasn't really taught all that much either because we don't really understand it.
Yeah. The vagal nerve, that's research that's coming out right now. That's not taught. I mean, there's all these different aspects of who we know or what we know from a visceral reactive perspective. And personally, doing soul work, I look at those as the vagal nerve is like a storage system of all of these energetic imprints because vagal nerve reacts. So, we have we have a lot of work to do to bring the body, mind, and soul together for people to really understand this and help people heal in the way that is really going to help them get somewhere.
Yeah, I just getting the mind and body to connect is been a huge shift that's uh,
Yeah.
only now in my lifetime, and I'm 65, so
Yeah.
considerable years that we're starting to talk about, it's not just your brain. Your brain isn't your whole being. It's your brain and your heart and your spleen and your guts and it just it's everything. It's not just one thing. And
The physical system, which is so interesting. Again, I was a medical school professor, and I actually had to leave because it was such a small box. I was thinking I have got to get out of here. Thinking, I thought that I would have all this space to really teach people about all of these aspects. There was less than a sugar cube sized box, but the physical. I'm going to show one more thing here. The physical aspect is what we put all of our attention on, and yet it is the smallest aspect of who we are. So we really think about, wow, all of the thoughts, all of the mind stuff that we have, that it's even bigger than the body. But then when you really think about the soul and the aspects of the soul, and I tell people this is probably even too small of an image to show this, but the
yeah,
soul encompasses every aspect of the body, every aspect of the mind, and encompasses really all of our experiences. And yet we have it flipped for how we pay attention to things. If anybody pays attention to the soul, they have to go to a separate practitioner to really go there. And I'll tell you, research wise, it is increasing. I'm doing a presentation at a conference in about a month, and I'm pulling the research together to prove that so many people are seeking soul healing services, whether their primary care physicians know or not. I mean, millions. And so behind the scenes, people are seeking, additional care because they know they're not getting it where they, where they want to be getting it. So millions of people are already going to the soul. We just need a better framework for people to understand how it all fits together. So,
I love that. So how does your coaching look, and who are the people that you primarily work with?
so I do what's called soul coaching, and I call it soul coaching on purpose because I use my model to basically, I have assessments that I've created over the years to systematically go through each one of those branches and say, okay, well, where do we need to start? How do we go? And I've got multiple assessments that are very helpful. But then I also include an intuitive side to it because most people come to me for one of maybe two or three reasons. Who am I? What is my soul's purpose? And where am I supposed to go? And so, it's really built around that and helping people tune into that. Now, I do some intuitive work every time I coach because I can dig into some of that, those energetic imprints that other people don't. And then I weave that into coaching them along to help them decide and overcome whatever is misaligning them. And I really help integrate this idea of soul health so that they have this concept to take with them and they can use that from that time forward. So whether or not I ever work with them again after this coaching process, they have that as a model for them to take them forward and just do a quick check. So I like to design my coaching around the person. So I have these assessments, I have this mindset, but I always have a conversation, an introductory conversation to say, what do you need? What are you wanting? And then let me design something that is going to help you move forward. And so it's almost like a buffet where once I hear a person's story and what they're needing, I can kind of work something together that I think is going to get them where they want to go. So that evolutionary process is really the core of how I like to work with people.
That sounds amazing
I love
and
it.
very concierge, but I think it goes back to your whole desire to treat an individual as an individual, unique and special, and help them evolve in the way that they're meant to evolve, and to find their purpose, because we're all here with a purpose. And the more of us that spend the energy to really pursue what we're supposed to be pursuing, the better the whole world's going to end up being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is about that alignment. And, that's why I call it radiant living. And if all of us were aligned, we'd all be radiant and we'd all be like working together to better this whole situation. So, there's nothing better than me watching a soul evolve. That's by far my favorite part of the work that I do.
Yeah, that's got to be so special.
Absolutely.
So you talked a little bit about the soul health model guide. You want to explain a little bit more about what it is and how people can get it?
So the soul health model is really this image that I showed earlier. And,
Mhm.
I've got people who literally tape this up in their laundry room. So once you understand the concept, you can literally give it a quick glance. So when you go onto my website, you can type in the website, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, and then you can download a copy of the Soul Health Model for yourself. And there's lots of other videos and different things on the website to help explain that process. But really, this is kind of like the blueprint. When you start looking at this model, it's a pretty intuitive model. It's not a complicated model. It's pretty, but it's not complicated. And you can just look at it and go, oh yeah, that's the branch that I need a little work on. And so people will just intuitively kind of go, yeah, this is kind of where I need to go. And for those who are interested, the first book that I published, which is called Soul Health Aligning with Spirit for Radiant Living, talks all about the model, and it has lots of assessments and lots of kind of evolutionary step-by-step kind of processes in there to help you really understand what soul health is, and also create a lifelong um, sort of rubric for how you continue tweaking that life.
Perfect. And people can find that on your website at.
And I'm going to say this, it's www.drkatherineTkelly.com. So it's drkatherineTkelly.com. And I joke with this that if you don't remember the T, you're going to get an orthodontist in Minnesota. So make sure you do katherineTkelly.com. You can also just type in Soul Health Model and my website should come up.
Awesome. So there you have it. If you're on an orthodontist site, then you know you missed the T.
Right.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Katherine. This has been
Thank
an
you.
amazing conversation.
Thank you so much.
To learn more about working with Dr. Katherine Kelly and her Soul Health Model Guide, please visit drkatherineTkelly.com, and we'll be sure to put that link in the show notes. And thank you all for tuning in with us today. If you have a podcast or you're interested in starting one to get your message in front of our huge and active audience, be sure to reach out to us at jill@gnostictv.com. We love to help spiritual entrepreneurs and coaches amplify their voice and monetize their mission, and offer a variety of ways to do this on the Gnostic TV network platform. Join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.